all started when we were in our teens. I met Joe at about age 15, and I guess he was about 14. And of course Matt, same age as me, 15, twin brother. We met Joe in school and developed a friendship and everything, and then later I had just started fiddling around with guitar. So Revolver's a rock band from about 1999, 2000, somewhere in there is when it started. 4 guys, pretty much right out of high school. It really started with the 3 Musketeers, Philip, Joe, me. We've been playing together before getting a drummer. Revolver was the best garage band in the Wichita Falls area at the turn of the century.
I think one of the great things about Revolver is you had 4 guys that had never been in a band before, and we were able to get together and experience all the things that you will experience being in a band for the first time, like performing in front of people, practicing together, creating chemistry between us, or even songwriting. So I thought that was a really cool thing, that it wasn't like you were joining a group that had already been playing or playing with musicians that have already been playing for a long time. It was all a fresh, new experience that each of us got to experience at the same time.
Man, that was a really, really magical time, I think, for all of us as musicians.
Revolver never achieved live gig success on a large scale. In fact, they never played a gig for money. The band's strength was in the original music and personal chemistry. The songs were very colorful and original. Revolver left a legacy. It spawned, both directly and indirectly, numerous bands that would go on to dominate the live music scene in the Texas region for the next 15 years and counting.
Revolver was really the next big band that never was. We had all the ingredients there. We had original music that was big at the time, and we had a little bit of a following there.
And it was fun, though. It was fun. It was an electric kind of environment. Everybody was just energy and excitement.
Really should have been a pretty big hit band. And I still think a lot of that original music is really good. Ultimately, we just couldn't overcome all the distractions. There was a lot of that going on, being young and people in and out, and there's too many distractions to overcome. Interesting thing is that would lead to Revolver really kind of led to Brother Sharp, which was most of Revolver, the members, and it would go on to include all of us. At some point or another, but that Brother Sharp went on to be the hardest working band in Wichita Falls for about 10 years. We probably played more gigs locally than any other band. Very successful gig band. But the original music was really key to Revolver, and that was a lot of the fun and a lot of the energy.
So we started jamming, and the thing was, this was not a good thing for a fledgling band, but we had a following quickly. Word got around with, at work and friends, and people started coming over, and people started, there were girls that would come over, and some of the guys we knew, they'd come over and drink beer, and people were, they were digging it, and you can't really develop, you can't be productive when you have an audience and you're not ready to have an audience, and you don't even have a set list worked up. We had songs, and we were adding and working on and adding to the mix and all that, but we had this following, and it might as well have been 100 people.
From the very beginning, there was always people coming around, friends of friends that would show up, and it was great that you had all these people, you had an audience to kind of perform in front of, because we'd never done that, never played in front of anybody. But it certainly could become a distraction, because people would just come over all the time, and it got to where we had to try to have closed practices to try to get anything done, because there were so many people that were interested in what was going on at the time.
I mean, it was crazy, the following that we had.
There were the girls. Of course, any good rock band's going to have chicks hanging around if you're any good, and we did. And, some girls from work would show up and watch and hang out.
And we were actually pretty popular. I mean, we could have probably charged $5 a head, and we all could have made $5,000 in the first month. It got so bad that we had to, schedule secret practices to keep people from coming over. And if we only had known that back then, we could have basically played anywhere we wanted, because we would have brought so many patrons to these different bars.
Practice bad. We just try to get away from everybody. Hell, there'd be 20 or 30 people show up and really couldn't do anything, at that time, because 20 or 30 people showed up. So you're trying to practice and lock the doors. You've got people beating on the walls and the doors to get in, and finally you let them in, and there goes the practice for the night.
Oftentimes between 5, 10 to a dozen. But there they are. You got these girls, you got these guys, you got, people just, you have an audience, and you don't even have you haven't even got your act together, and there they are.
There was just distractions and people in and out. It was a lot of fun, but it was just...
There's nothing in the world that I think could ever compare to the years I've spent with these guys and just the memories we've made. We were more than groupies, but not quite in the band, but man, we felt like we were. Revolver's always going to be a big part of my heart. They grew into Brother Sharp, and they've done some other gigs. I just don't think anything will compare to the fun and the love of being a part of that group.
the reality, there was nothing, not a lot of substance there yet, not a lot of development and repertoire, but the fun was there.
So the group Revolver, I mean, it was a lot of fun because not many people can say they were in a band, yet it was the perfect time. I mean, there we are, right at the perfect age for it, and it all happened at the right time, so it was, something was in the air. So it's one of those things you can never replicate. You can never go back and redo that. And so it was a special time, and there was a feeling of that. I mean, we all kind of talked about it too. It was almost like you could feel there was a kind of a tingly electric feeling in the air, and so it was really cool, really special. And then that group was really the birth of all of our, musical careers, and we'd all go on to do quite a few different groups and a lot of gigs, a lot of pretty cool big shows and whatnot. And so really, in a way, it all started right there with Revolver.
That was one of the great things about Revolver, is the fact that original music was at the forefront of everything that we did, and we weren't really trying to be a cover band and go out there and just play songs that were popular that people would know. We were really trying to write our own stuff, sing our own songs, and come up with our own things off of our own influences. And so that was always something that was pretty crazy for a bunch of teenagers to achieve at such an early age, and playing our instruments even.
A lot of young girls. They wanted to get out and have some fun, and we provided what they were wanting to hear.
It made a lot of fun for you guys, didn't it?
Revolver was a really special band because we were all young, teenagers, first band, and there was several unique dynamics to it. One is that we were like best friends, like a band of brothers, and we had a bunch of original music.
We hopped the train to Southern California. She's all that and more. But man, I gotta warn you, she's so cool. She's everywhere it's hot. She ain't got much, but you can see she's got a lot.
Pretty much everybody associated with that time period, friends and fans, and just anybody that came into contact with the band and with the members of the band, pretty much look back the same way very fondly.
It's a runaway train with nothing to lose. 100 miles ahead of nothing but railway blues. She's got a piece of broken hearts from every town. Didn't mean to let that little baby get me down. She gets off at every other station. Didn't even ask about her occupation. She's a runaway train with nothing to lose. 100 miles ahead of nothing but railway blues.
And, the guys, Jason, Joe, myself, Matt, we've all been in multiple bands, and we've all done things since then. And in a lot of ways, we've done bigger things, for money or for bigger crowds and, things like that. But everybody looks back at Revolver very fondly. we all feel like that's our favorite band, and we all feel that was an experience that just will never be duplicated. It pretty much tops the list. Just a really special time, a special group, and a lot of creativity. More than any other band.
She's a runaway train with nothing to lose, 100 miles ahead of nothing but railway blues.
For the most part, that any of us were involved in, just the creativity and originals and just energy, just the energy of youth. It was a really special time.
It was a summer of fun, like no prior engagements, nobody had kids to pick up, nobody had this. It was fun. It was fun, it was creative, it was true musicianship at its finest.
What Revolver meant to me was loud, fun music, crazy friends, a reason for us all to get together and go hang out at the Crash Pad band house.
And it really was great because it felt like we were doing something that you could appreciate because we were playing original music, and instead of just playing cover stuff, other people's music, it was just more rewarding than just playing covers of somebody else's songs. So we were at the point now where somebody was going to have to step up and actually be the lead singer of this group, and Philip stepped in and took on that role, and Matt actually started singing too, but it was really more Philip at the beginning that started out taking that position and playing rhythm guitar. Sometimes would play some lead guitar, and then my job became playing lead guitar primarily, and Matt on bass, and then Jason on drums. And things shifted to where instead of playing cover music, the writing really started picking up. Philip started writing a lot. Matt would write some too. Jason even had some songs. And so it really opened the door for me as a guitar player to start trying to find a voice in my playing in their songs.
Well, by that point, Joe was awesome. He'd really just taken off, and he was an awesome young lead player. A lot of people took notice.
Oh, it was great. I mean, even before he got with Mac, that was before Mac McAdoo, and before Chet Atkins. I mean, that was a guy that was serious about what he was doing. Like, he had a path, he wanted something, and he achieved what he wanted.
He's a world-class guitar player. This guy could play any type of music, he could play with any band, on any stage, anywhere, and that's no question, hands down.
I mean, he's just a world-class guitar player. I mean, hands down. Could be a studio, could be a session musician right now in a studio.
Just a great talent to have. And like Jason, he had a knack for originals.
Joe was just a monster on guitar, but he was a technician. He was so technically precise. He was impressive. So it wasn't just showy type stuff, show off, gimmicky stuff. I mean, he would play things note perfect. People would be so impressed with you. Hey, can you play this, play that? Note perfect. And he was the tone king. I mean, the sound that he would get, he would sound exactly like any given song or any given part.
Seasoned, very well polished. And it's weird to say because I think of Joe now, of course, he's the greatest guitarist in Wichita Falls in my opinion. When you make comparisons from then to now, it was like he was polished then, but
you know, his sound is so much bigger now, his tone and everything else. But even then, his tone was incredible.
It's like he was.
It was like he knew what he wanted to sound like then.
If I had a song or Matt had a song, but especially myself, I could play this song and he could hear it and appreciate it, click with it, and he could just start putting these leads that fit, you know, just so well. And he was so impressed with Joe, of course, and that's another. You've got this impressive young guitar player, an ace guitar player, and then you've got this powerhouse drummer. So we were off to a good start.
You had a monster drummer, basically. Jason was an energetic guy, and you know he would just bang away on the drums, and you know, just drum fills all over the place, and a very impressive drummer type to see, and that would have excited a lot of people.
I think Jason Riley could have been one of the best drummers in Wichita Falls when we met him. Jason was a big inspiration on me, even though he was a drummer, that I needed to try to get better at my craft and what I was doing on guitar, or what I was adding to songs, just day-to-day woodshedding on the instrument, because Jason could be rather intimidating. He was such a phenomenal drummer.
He had this energy. Not only did he have personal energy, but he just put it into the drums. The drums were oozing energy, and just, you know, loud and energetic and just a force. And so that was a huge plus to have as a band, is you have a force on the drums. And you know, that was just great, especially live. You know, that's one of the several things that attracted people to see us just practicing. You know, some band that's just not even talking about practice. Y'all practice. It's a band that's not even out there. You're not even playing, and yet people are coming to see. And that was one of the, you know, we had several draws and several things, but that was one of them for sure. Was this powerhouse drums. That's what we had. So that's Jason in a nutshell.
So you had Jason, monster, impressive. Joe was amazing. So the crowd element, that part, those were two huge parts of Revolver. You were gonna have a good time. It was gonna be exciting to see us jam. And then Philip and I, the element that we brought, you know, the vocals, but the songwriting. That's what really what we brought to the table. I think our talent was writing the songs.
Like, y'all were great lyricists. I mean, you and Philip were both great lyricists. Y'all could take words and mold them into a story that was great.
Philip really could have been a lead guitar player in the group, and in fact, he did play on a lot of songs. Played some guitar solos and fills and hooks. And to this day, I think Philip is really gifted when it comes to writing hooks or riffs in songs that catch the ear and the attention of the listener. And that's really kind of rare, because I know all the bands I've played in, which is a lot. You got the guy singing and playing rhythm guitar. Most of the time, they're just really heavy-handed, playing the cowboy chords and not playing anything else, not doing any kind of intros or solos, riffs or leads throughout a song. But that wasn't the case with Revolver. Philip was more than capable of stepping in and playing that role, and did. And and I think his songwriting improved as his guitar playing improved.
You know, Philip could play lead guitar, and you really hear a lot of that, even on the first album, which is kind of cool because, you know, Joe was the lead guitar player. He was the most talented, probably of the whole bunch, but he was the most talented guitar player, and that he was a technician, and that was his job. But Philip could play lead too, and you hear that even on the first album, and so that's really cool, and sometimes together.
Philip being able to voice his rhythm and lead parts. His lead parts are as equal to Joe is as far as creativity. Now, as far as technicality, there's differences.
I think Matt had a great bass teacher. His name was Paul McCartney. I know Matt's playing got better and better, and his writing got better, but you could certainly see big strides on the instrument over short periods of time.
Now Matt, he's a good bass player.
Matt was great. I mean, back then though, we didn't know what. I remember y'all were like, well, what's this and this and this, but we were all instinctive.
He always says he's not that good, but he's better than he gives himself credit for. He's really a really blue collar, like in a gig sense and covers and things like that. He's a blue collar bass player who's always gonna find a way. I've seen him play stuff that he didn't really know, just impromptu, and he'll find a way to play it, you know, and always sounds good and is always, you know, getting the job done. So a blue collar bass player in the live gig sense and cover sense and all that stuff. When it comes to originals, big time creativity, colorful, creative way of, whether it's writing his songs on bass and the ones that he did that, he didn't write everything on bass, but a good chunk of what he wrote was on bass, since that was his primary instrument, and he would put creative, interesting, compelling bass lines as sort of the foundation of these great songs that he's writing.
And Matt's bass playing was really good, that carried the song in a lot of ways in the chord progression, and it was a really nice bass line that he come up with.
Really good at live stuff, but as an original bass player, he's great. And in songwriting, of course, great songwriting abilities.
You have a guy that plays bass that would just play unorthodox, would play with the finger pick.
Great songwriter, hands down. I mean, and I've said in years past many times, like, my brother is a great songwriter, and it's too bad the world doesn't know it and hasn't heard it. But, you know, lyricist, coming up with chords and melodies and sounds. I mean, just a great songwriter, and, you know, I'd put his stuff up against almost anybody's.
For a group of four, we had guys that could do various different things, which is also really cool. Jason was a drummer, but he could play a little bit of guitar. I could play a little bit of guitar, and I put down some, not a whole lot, but guys' versatility and doing different things, that was really cool. We weren't just a cookie cutter band.
Joe and I kind of learned to play guitar together, but not really. Just we sort of, you know, matured or whatever, got better together. Because he already knew how to play and I sort of knew how to play, but we just cut our teeth in those early days together. So we have a lot of multifaceted things to our friendship, and he's just a phenomenal musician and a phenomenal guitar player.
All these years later, you have to stop and ask yourself if you would have ever played in a band, or if we would ever progressed as a guitar player or anything in music if it hadn't been jamming with Philip Harrell. After all these years, I can look back on it now and realize that it seemed like the two of us probably maybe kicked this whole thing off, playing music, and there certainly wouldn't have been Revolver.
Matt and Philip and Joe really taught me the appreciation of music, and I got to see firsthand the difference between the bass and the rhythm guitar, and the difference between the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar, and the different brands of drums, and just the way everything fell together. I got to learn different kinds of guitars, and I learned to love and appreciate the history of rock and roll. You know, I never cared much about the Beatles until I met those guys. Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, they were just so awesome.
Great stuff, fun stuff. That's the kind of thing that just makes it a thrilling, satisfying experience to be in a band with like-minded guys, same age, going through most of the same stuff, and then people are creating stuff all around. Joe wrote stuff. He wrote parts to these songs. Jason wrote drum parts, and he, you know, some of his own songs and things. Matt wrote songs, I wrote songs. I put things to Matt's songs, and he put things to my songs, and everybody was adding and contributing and into it. We really liked, and we were, you know, we liked the stuff we were doing. We were digging each other's songs, and you know, the things that we were contributing to each other's songs with our parts and things. We generally liked all of that stuff, and it was just such a great, you know, you're young, you're excited, and energy is going on, and that's the most satisfying and rewarding thing, especially 20 years later, way more than, you know, just the excitement of people watching you play, like the little following, but the collaboration and the chemistry, it was just outstanding.
It gave everybody a chance to actually voice their thoughts in a song. Instead of speaking, you were voicing your thoughts through an instrument, which was great. You can't say enough about, I mean, Philip really, I mean, his guitar playing, I mean, Crimson Vision was probably my favorite song. Dun, dun, that was such a great song. I remember, and it's crazy because the flood back of memories you get when you re-listen to these tracks. Crimson Vision, I mean,
learning with those guys and learning their music and how they were so creative, man, they're just so talented. It made me fall in love with Revolver.
I probably never would have said this back then, probably didn't. You know, youth and sibling rivalry and all that stuff, but Philip was a great guitar player. For a lead singer and rhythm guy, he was a great guitar player and played great leads too on originals and coming up with stuff. And he didn't just play your open chords to sing along with. I mean, he had the bar chords and advanced stuff. And also as a songwriter, he was an amazing songwriter. I might have even let that slip back then too. I always thought he was a great songwriter, and you can really see how that develops through album 1 and 2, and then especially, really, even more so if you listen to the demos, the early demos that were not long after the band split up. But even, I mean, musically he wrote great stuff, melodies, always had a great melody. And if I had to pick, I'd say lyrically, that's probably his biggest strength, even though those other things were too. Amazing writer lyrically, and I always felt like, better than me, especially lyrically. I always felt like I was trying to keep up as far as that goes. He has a way with words and lyrics, and just a big strength.
The dynamic with me and him in Revolver was a contentious one, because we were at that age, teenagers, and then on up to about 20 or 21, something like that. Butting heads all the time, arguing all the time, no compromise. I mean, it was always a slugfest of ideas or anything. Just, I want it to sound like that. No, it's my song. It was always all-out war, and just not much diplomacy, not much compromise, negotiation. I mean, it was just a slugfest, and that's unfortunate, of course, but that's just the way it goes when you're young, and when you're twins, you're the same kind of bullheaded, and it's like I was always right and he was always right. That was just the way it was, black and white. It's my way or the highway was sort of two of those just going at it, and so there was a lot of conflict in those types of areas, and Joe never wanted any part of that, but Jason sort of relished the role of trying to be the mediator and step up and say, okay, try to referee a little bit, but that was one of the dynamics, was that tension between us.
And I was coming into my own. The second album, I actually had 5 of the songs on there, up from 1 on the first album, so I was really kind of coming into my own, getting going from probably terrible to pretty good at songwriting. So I was starting to get more, get to sing some of them, 5 of my songs, and writing more, but I always felt like I was trying to compete. And so that was a good dynamic, good competitive dynamic, because I always felt like I had to write the next one, try to get it better. I'd hear something he did, and it pushes you to, you gotta be on your A game.
And then when he emerged as a songwriter, he was writing stuff that was better than my stuff. And I mean, I immediately knew that, and then it's like, you gotta respond. You've gotta, and which I did, at least kind of keeping up. I responded with some better stuff, improved. I stepped up my game, and because he suddenly emerges with these great songs. And, he's going to sing the songs because he wrote them, so that kind of cuts in. It's like, oh, I'm the lead singer, and now I'm losing some slots here, and he's singing. And really, that was okay. It wasn't like a big problem, but it makes you kind of look over your shoulder a little bit, because I thought it was cool that he was writing and singing, because first of all, they're great. Like, look at this song, Hourglass, that's great, down, oh, that's great. So that's your first thing is, wow, okay, we're improving our material and our ability. So, and then to have another singer was cool too, because, not all, but most of our favorite bands had dual lead singers. The obvious one being the Beatles. You've got John Lennon over here and Paul McCartney over here, and so Matt's doing that. I'm all for it. And the Eagles had 2 main guys, and Pink Floyd has 2 main guys, and Fleetwood Mac has a whole bunch, and other Crosby, Stills and Nash, and various multi-singing groups. We all like that, and so to have another singer and have him step up and do lead singing on his songs was nice, but there was that competitive aspect. You couldn't ignore that someone else is now singing some songs, so that really helps. It's competitive, you feed off of that, and but it made all the difference in the world when he started writing and singing and adding his contributions. It took the next CD, the second CD, it took that to the next level.
In the mid-90s, there was lots of bands in our area that were just cover groups. And it would have been real easy for Revolver just to play other people's music and go out and get a gig and get paid for it. But instead, the songwriting and the original material was really at the forefront of what we did. And I'm glad that we took that road, even though it's a harder road to take. And Matt and Philip would come in with these songs, and Jason too, and they'd come in and say, hey, they would leave the door open for me to play and contribute as a guitar player. It really made me feel a part of the songs, even though a lot of them, I had no stake in writing lyrics or anything or melodies. But it was great because they always left lots of openings for parts, for either Jason to play something on drums or for me to play something on guitar. Way different than a lot of the groups I played in over the years, that their main agenda or goal was just playing cover songs and getting paid for it. That's something that was totally different about Revolver from the get-go.
It's because you pour your soul into writing and songwriting especially, and to have it be accepted like that, and to have people think it's great is huge. It's a big deal.
You always had Matt, the bass needs to be louder, turn the bass up. Then Joe blaring, because I'd always turn him up. And of course Jason going off on his drinking rampage of drum solos for 45 minutes. And then Philip over there, y'all need to do what I'm saying to do. But yeah, it was fun times.
It was funny. Jason and Philip would butt heads sometimes. I mean, we'd all have our fights, and like I said, not anything I can really recall too serious, but Philip and Jason particularly, they'd clash, and like I said, not a huge deal, but it was always just like, Jason was, Philip was very, and it's good, I mean, but he was very, kind of sergeant or football coach, or so he was real. And it's crazy, I mean, we somehow needed even more of that to get past what we were going through and get out and gig and take off. But I mean, he was pretty hard-nosed pretty much all the time, and kind of like Troy Aikman as Cowboys quarterback, very no nonsense. And Jason was kind of the opposite. He was and Jason's, funny guy, just kind of a clown, goofy guy, and nice guy, funny. But I mean, sometimes he was there to do anything but practice, and I mean, it was a struggle sometimes.
Young Jason Riley was a rebel. Okay, he ventured out and said things that he probably shouldn't have said, because
what were his tendencies?
His tendencies were to be unorthodox. Like,
was he in search?
Most
of
people would be like,
time?
"Oh, dude, to a skydive, of course." And
fun time drive to a skydive.
Oh yeah, and never actually got in a plane to do a skydive, but
the
it always looked good on paper, like this set list right here. And this is the one from 2008. Great set list, written by yours truly, Phil Harrell. And I
always did have a knack for the set list.
Would you say that you could write a set list better than Joe? Because y'all used to have.
Yes, I would.
Y'all always had a.
I put the time in it, and I put the cross referencing. I would think of the venue. I would think of the times. I would think of who might be drinking how much at certain points of the night, and what crowds might be showing
Philip
up.
did tend to drink a lot from here to here. I was always the one that was level-headed and didn't start.
Never had to ask for a piss break in the middle of a set.
Oh no, man! That screams rhythm and lead guitars for Under the Gun in 2008. He's lived in Oklahoma for. I don't know. I got married in 2013, so
middle of
he's been living there for 3 years. Okay, so for my bachelor party, we go to Edmond, Oklahoma to visit Philip, and he took us out in Breaktown. Well, he didn't realize that you can buy beer past 2 o'clock or past 1 o'clock in Oklahoma. So I proved him wrong, and
you got me on that one.
Because they wanted to go to all-male strip club, and I was like, I'm not for that. I'm not for that.
Wow.
So
Right.
I had to prove a point, and they were mad at me, and they forgave me. And
so then the girls and the drama, there's plenty of stories on that side of it. Myself, Philip had a few, a few different females and situations, all wrapped up into what was going on there. Jason and Joe, we all had some drama. Joe was going steady at the time, but you're young and you're spending so much time there. There was each one of us had some little bit of drama at least. But I remember Philip, he was the lead singer, and so there was more than one girl that would come through, and then it's like, I want the lead singer, and then maybe he's dating somebody. So there were several of those. Tim's girlfriend, and then 2 or 3 others. And then, Jason, there were some coming through that, sometimes the girl wants the drummer. That's rare, but, so I may leave it up to the other guys to flesh out those stories, but there's a lot of funny stories and interesting people that came through, in the Revolver story.
Candace and Angie and Glenn and Casey. Little did we know that the Trashiest Dump would be the coolest place to hang out on most nights of the week, and especially Friday and Saturday nights. It was great, man. Sometimes we never even went home. We'd wake up there.
Lots of different girls started coming over at the band house, sort of people that weren't necessarily part of the original bunch. Like, there were different facets coming together of the little following and stuff. And it got so bad that we started talking about secret practices or false practice nights. Hey, put the word out, we're going to practice on Wednesday night, switch it to Thursday, so we could, because we just had no privacy, and we couldn't, the distractions were just so bad.
Playing around all these other girls and people that were coming around, because we had such a big following that would come and watch us practice and jam and hang out. I think all those things probably were a big problem and a girl's mind, that seeing that I was probably going to eventually be playing bars.
So Philip put on his best Elvis a few times with girls hooking up and coming by, things like that. So one of the early girls, followers, they kind of start seeing each other, they're together, and then another one comes, some more come in to watch us, and so there's this other one that he's still kind of seeing one of them, and then this one, and so it's sort of like an Elvis movie. For at the beginning, I think it was like, one of them would show up, and then the next night she wouldn't be there, and the other one would show up, and then eventually they both show up at the same time, and he gets busted. The best part of it, though, was he could totally get away with it. I mean, it's like he's the lead singer, and the girls want him, and so it's like, what are you going to do? And so they both knew about it, knew about each other, started showing up at the same time. It's kind of claws coming out, but they, he, like I said, he pulled it off, and they kept showing up, and they'd be kind of like hissing at each other or whatever, but it just, there it was. It's like, he's Elvis, and then the other things like that too. There was another deal where he's seeing one of them, and then another one shows up, So two separate kind of little Elvis type situations, and then of course the recording studio, and the girl named Amanda, you know, so he got, you know, she's of course digging him, and then he's recording the song Amanda. It wasn't written about her obviously, but it's like she's like, this is too good to be true. So he had his Elvis movie moments for sure.
There's a girl who lives next door. She's in love with me. There's a girl who lives next door. She's in love with me. But I don't know if I'm in love with her. 'Cause you can't be sure about anything these days. And I wouldn't want to change. I want to get away.
To develop a little crush on Philip.
So lead singer obviously is important for any rock band, and we had the monster drummer, we had monster lead guitar player, so those two, that was a big element, a big attraction. Lead singer was another attraction, if you will. So vocally, Philip had a great quality, a really unique sound, and you know, we were all very young, so he would only go on to improve and get even better. But you know, at the time, he unique sound. There was a guy we were friends with, I remember, Nick, friend and co-worker, and he was one of the original followers of the band, but I remember him talking to Philip and I after he heard our first album, and he said, you know, Philip's lead vocal, his voice, his vocal quality, he said it's almost like another instrument, so a very signature part of the band. And so that's, I think, every bit as important, if not more, than you know, the big drum sound, awesome guitar. So there was a lot of really key elements coming together there. As far as a draw, you know, there were girls that came to see us, and they were interested in the lead singer right off the bat. I mean, they thought, you know, attractive guy, you know, young, handsome, my twin brother. So you know, but girls would show up for that element, you know, to see four young guys playing in a band and it's happening and stuff. But it was always, you know, he was kind of a magnet for that. And each of us got, you know, our various interests as far as girls showing up, but he got the most. And obviously being the lead singer, but you know, that was kind of a big deal. You know, you got to have a good-looking singer. He's got to be a good singer too, and so we had all those bases covered.
It was fun, and we jammed out. The party continued. You know, people would come over, and you know, it was sort of like a party house doubling as a practice pad, which was again not good for getting work done and creating a set list. But it was we had some new material after Revolver 38th Street. We were coming up with more songs, and that was mainly because Matt caught fire. He started developing and taking off with songwriting, and he started cranking out these songs, and not just, he had one song on 38th Street and it was pretty good, but that's about it. And then suddenly he explodes with not just volume, he's coming up with songs, but they were fantastic. They were, in a lot of ways, they were better than the stuff on anything on the first CD. And then that kind of, I told him this recently, which hadn't really admitted this to anybody, I don't think, but that it was a competitive drive. And I thought, well, oh man, I wrote Mirror basically because he came up with Hourglass and Down and stuff like that. And it was just sort of like, oh, I gotta answer this. And so he starts coming with these great songs, and that's what I remember at the beginning of the band dump, or the house. It was in Dogpatch.
And then Down by far was the most influential, besides Amanda, was the most turning point song, I guess you would say, that it was magical.
How could you laugh when the tears came down? You just stood there and grinned when I was down. I will make my escape from under this town. Who do you think you are when you hang around? When I look at you, you're just a face in the crowd. Whatever made you think you could hang around? Where were you, my friend, when I was down? I'm looking for you, where did you go? It's all moving too fast and I'm feeling slow. Little world of fun is coming around. Who do you think you are while you hang around? When I look at you, you're just a face in the crowd. Whatever made you think you could hang around? Where were you, my friend, when I was down? Where were you when I was down? Where were you when I was down? Top of the world, now you're down on the ground. Where were you when I was down? When I was down, yeah.
That rock and roll song really ate its Wheaties for breakfast.
Do you have to have that bright light on?
Gotta have it.
Why?
It's a sobriety test.
I failed.
So what are some of your favorite tax office moments? Take us back to the tax office.
Oh, when Joe drove the black Ford and we used to play car tag. Remember that? That's pretty fun. Another memory about those days was when Shane had that makeshift speaker deal. He smashed it. He got pissed off at it, so he told him it sucked. He took it out and started smashing it. That's pretty epic.
I remember him getting a running start and jumping with both feet into the middle of the speaker.
Yeah, that was
out in front of the tax office.
I think he was working at Dairy Queen when it was on Jacksboro Highway. But
me putting speakers together to have monitors from home speakers and having fights with Jason and throwing them out in the street and stomping on them. If nobody... We're not going to use my damn monitors, so I'll just stomp on them. Hell.
Gosh, man, that's been...
So how would you grade Shane as a sound man?
F. I wouldn't even give him an F. A Z? Is that possible? I mean...
What did we call him?
Dr. Feedback?
Dr. Feedback.
Dr. Feedback.
Dr. Feedback.
Dr. Feedback.
What was his tendency when, oh my God, when Joe would go into a solo?
Turn him up as loud as he could.
Obsessed with Joe and his leads, and he would just crank the fader all the way up to 10. And, oh, Daddy, I'm cranking Joe up.
Up to 11.
Yeah, but these only go to 10. But these go to 11. So, let me ask you that. Who showed you Spinal Tap? Philipper?
Let's get back on track here. The tax office. So what happened at the tax office?
Well, a lot of people got a lot of refunds. And made my grandma a lot of money, I guess.
Some have said Revolver never played a gig. You guys never played any gigs. Well, that's not true. We actually played several gigs and a couple that were just awesome, really. So we didn't have any paying gigs and we were all kids. But
now, what we had done though is we started getting experience playing parties and things. And the very first thing was a party in Burke.
The very first one being the Burke pool party.
Down the road from Joe's house, somebody's birthday party, and teenagers over there swimming.
I remember doing the pool party.
This was raw talent at its finest. I mean, it was raw talent at its finest.
And then we played some parties out in Byers, small country town close to the Red River, I think. And we did a few of those things, and then there was the lake house stuff.
The other one, Lake Arrowhead.
Jason's grandma, her lake house out on Lake Arrowhead. We went out there and we had some good time.
So the lake house there on the close to the lakefront, Jason's grandma's lake house, we set up out there on the back porch and screened in. And so we were set up there facing the lake, and the crowd was right outside, but it was really neat because it's sort of like you're screened in, but you're right there.
We actually went out to this lake house that Jason's grandmother had, and I don't remember if we went out there to try to get away from people so we could get some time to practice alone, or just give us a little bit different atmosphere to where it wasn't the same old thing on rehearsing, or if it was just partly for fun too. It could have been all the above.
It seems like the first time we ever went out there was probably the best. And we set up, and all these people came out, and it was just, the atmosphere was kind of electric, and we were jamming.
Only thing I remember is playing one late gig.
And we came up with the jam, that little A minor progression. It was just, it was fun. Everybody was having a great time.
So we called it the jam.
We called it the jam.
And it was in A, and went down to G, and then F,
dun, dun,
to E, and then F, G, A. But yeah, so why? There was a lot of people out there, party atmosphere, and we're up there jamming, and we've got probably an hour or two of music, and we rock their socks off, and crowds going nuts. I mean, so those two right there, just big time, magical, energetic.
We had several of those, and they were fairly successful. People had a good time. Candace, Coker, Shane Coker, and eventually later Cody Reynolds, all these people coming out, Shondell and her friends, Jenny, and all those girls and guys, and Robbie, and so we sort of cut our teeth, what little teeth we had, at these late gigs and country parties and pool parties to begin with, and things like that. Various little things that we did
at the lake. That was fun as could be. Remember Joe and Candace playing some Zeppelin.
I remember not being so great because I remember all of us going out to the dock, and there was a bunch of people from Sutherland, Shane Coker and all them, and we were like, why don't these people take us seriously? And the whole time we were on the dock, Coker and all them were singing "Wasted Away" again in Margaritaville.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
They commandeered the microphone.
And there was a video actually that, if we could ever find the footage that was cut in, that was talking about, that was where he was singing that, but they had the colored lights on the deck. And I remember that, "Wasted Away" again in Margaritaville. And I remember like somebody knew how to play guitar or whatever, but yeah.
Hubcap out there on Shepherd Access Road we did a set worth about 15 songs or so.
And as far as live gigs, we actually did play at a bar called the Hubcap, and it was an actual gig. I don't think they paid us anything for it though. I think they just allowed us to play a set. So we wound up doing around 15 songs, and that's it. We were just so nervous, but we never had a paying gig. That would come later. But Revolver proper never had a paying gig.
Revolver's first, I guess you could say, bar gig, and maybe, I guess, only bar gig whenever I was playing, would have been at the Hubcap. And the Hubcap in Wichita Falls was really a big place for rock bands to play at the time. Groups like A Bottom, Big Lou. Some of these people that would be there, they were used to seeing some really, really good acts that would come in that would mainly play cover music, southern rock, blues, and then we went in there and played, and we were doing a lot of originals. We did throw in a couple covers, but we did, I guess, a set or maybe two sets.
And so that was a legitimate gig. That wasn't a paying gig. It was just a set. It was, hey, can we play? And they let us, and the crowd liked us. And in fact, I remember, and it was an older crowd, so it didn't have the volume or the energy of those other two gigs I was talking about, but they liked us. And I remember, and we just fresh-faced young kids, but I remember
it being very strange because I hadn't played much where you're in a room like that and you have a PA system and you kind of hear your guitar going through the PA system and bouncing back at you. That was very weird, almost kind of scary, frightening in a way, because I wasn't used to hearing anything like that and being in some kind of atmosphere like that. So that was pretty educational in a lot of ways. And I'm assuming probably the other guys probably felt the same way, being able to hear themselves, and just different, very different than being playing, say, at the some of the other places we had been playing, some of the parties and outdoor stuff, and just a very, very different thing.
But I remember we were done with that set, and we're packing up, we're tearing down, and some of the old folks, I mean, they were like, "What are you doing? Well, why are you leaving? Y'all gotta go to school in the morning?" But they, so they're a little needling, but they didn't, it's like, "Hey, keep playing. Why do you got to stop?" So they wanted us to keep playing. It was like, we're new. We had a set where it worked up, and that was it. So we were done.
My 19th birthday, and I live about 30 miles from Wichita Falls, out in the middle of nowhere. And we had a house kind of on some acreage and land, and I remember that I hosted a 19th birthday, 21st birthday style, and Revolver came out and played in my garage.
So we did that. And then after that, I don't know how long, I mean, we still had a couple late parties and seems like we had a party, just various parties, and then of course the big one in Byers. That was the pinnacle.
The magical Byers gig.
So I think the Byers gig is probably one of the more memorable gigs that I was able to play.
Byers party, though, phenomenal, really phenomenal party, because
we played the Byers gig, which was probably one of the most magical. Would you say, without a doubt, all the gigs you've ever played, best ever? Didn't get paid or nothing, but just the energy. You got paid by the energy that we produced from the audience.
Even professional gigs.
Professional gigs. I don't care to this day. And it was magical. It was magical.
Kind of maybe college parties, if you will. It was out at that house in Byers. There's not really a head count. There might have been 30 or 40 people out there. It might have been like less than 50 people, but
I felt more than that, though.
We probably had 50, 60 people there.
I don't know, there was probably 50 to 75 people there.
Half the town being there, that was pretty awesome.
Felt like 100, or more. Felt like 1,000.
And a lot of people were coming there. Alcohol was involved, but the crowd. And so we set up so we were outside, but there was a connected carport to that house, and we set up under that, but right up at the front. Really cool. So
to this day, I might have come close to tying it, but I've never topped it.
Yeah, it was like you were getting the energy from music, but you're getting the energy from the crowd.
Yeah, a party night, lots of people are showing up, but we get 20, 30, 40 maybe, who knows, but I mean, it was nighttime, obviously, and dark. We had the lights on behind us from the carport. Phenomenal.
We were outside, set up under the roof, a structure, which is like a garage structure, and we were jamming and the crowd was feeling it. They were really responding well to everything.
And it was just one of those nights where the four of us were all in the zone. Just so much electricity between the four of us.
Band played all night. It was outside. It was in the summer. It was just a blast. People were just rocking out. They loved them.
What the best part of it, so you really had a lot of people, but the thing is, everybody was zoned in, just locked in, and everybody was loving it. The energy from that is just about the best I've ever experienced, even bands following and paying gigs and big time gigs and stuff. Unbelievable energy, unbelievable crowd. Everybody in the crowd locked in on you, screaming their heads off, loving it. It was unbelievable. So that gig was unreal.
And the reason that's the pinnacle for me is because all four of us were in the zone, and the whole crowd was in the zone, and everybody, there wasn't a single, you could feel it. There was not a single person who's just checking their watch or whatever. And a lot of times in music and all the gigs that I've wound up playing, and the other guys have played so many thousands of gigs, that despite all that, that was a pinnacle moment.
That was by far the best party, birthday, celebration, whatever I've ever had on record.
Yeah, so the Byers, even though it's close, the Iron, Brother Sharp
yeah,
at Peak Iron Horse, but Revolver at Byers.
You ever play sets where if your monitor mix is not exactly right, you don't feel the music on the stage? Where we were playing in Byers, it was like
pure energy.
The energy from we didn't even have monitors back then, so the energy from our from our PA was tuned in to what we were doing, which created an energy that we projected. Because I don't care who you are, if you don't feel the song, you're not going to play it with your whole soul. Byers by far, Byers monitors.
You will not need them.
I mean, we just
monitors. You will not need them.
It was just energy, and we knew. It was like we knew what we were doing. So it's sort of almost like
Captain. You don't need the monitors.
It was a spectacular turnout. People had to drive 30, 40 miles just to get there, and they did. And a lot of people woke up the next day at my house.
Getting mobbed after the gig, and people just, they're all coming up to you during and after. You guys rock. And
we finished that, and they kind of mobbed us. We kind of put our instruments up, and I'm sure somebody did that. And and they just sort of mobbed us, and we felt like rock stars.
The crowd, I felt like they were a part of it. And a lot of times you can go play gigs and play places and perform for people, and you may have a good night, or the guy next to you may have a good night, but the four of us were really, really clicking together playing, and the crowd too. And that's
huge for that type of amateur party. Just for an amateur gig, a free gig, nothing tops it.
It was definitely legendary, and I think the guys became pretty popular by that point.
I've played to much bigger crowds. Probably the biggest crowd later on with Brother Sharp would be 3,000 people, something like that. Burke Amphitheater, and other places, Toby Keith in Oklahoma City, Iron Horse Packed House in Wichita Falls, and Rattlesnake Festival, Rattlesnake Hunt, Waurika, hundreds and hundreds of people, and so much bigger crowds. But that little party with 30 people, roughly, that takes the cake. That tops it all.
Nothing really tops that kind of a deal, that kind of band, doing your thing, writing your stuff, playing your stuff, doing your own thing. Nothing ever tops that. No band that any of us has ever played in since can top that. The energy of youth, that very first band, and doing it our way, doing what we wanted to do, and or even that gig.
For all of us to really be into it and then also to get the crowd really into it. It was almost like they were playing and feeling the same energy that we were. Pretty amazing. There's really not too many gigs I can think of over the years, and I've played probably 2,000 that could really compare to how intense that was, and just the electricity of us getting to perform and play.
A lot of times you can have, in the case of, recently the Queen movie has come out, and, people are talking about that Live Aid performance and how Freddie Mercury was on, and Brian May talked about, hey, we were playing pretty good, but he was, so sometimes it just takes one guy to be in the zone and it can be a memorable deal. But a lot of times even then, some other guys are just kind of, getting through it, that kind of thing, but we were all four. And that's very rare, whether it's a 4-piece, 5-piece, to get everybody in the zone at the same time. It's rare and special, but then to have the crowd, even though it's just a small group of people, everybody, it was just one of those pinnacle peak moments that it's so hard to top. We had, as cheesy as it sounds now, and even then, we had Freebird was our big ender, and we didn't care, it was like we knew about the cliche of, Freebird and, all that stuff. Looking back now, we're so jaded that you cringe at the thought of, playing Freebird at any point in a show, let alone to be the big finale. But we didn't care because we loved it. We were so young and kind of naive and raw that, we just loved that song and the guitar, and we wanted Joe to cut loose on guitar. And, it was just a great jam, and we played it. We didn't care what anyone thought, and we ended with that. And the place just took the roof off, so to speak.
Always, everybody wanted to hear Freebird all the time, but that was fun back in the day. We were young and did whatever we wanted. And
it can't be said that Revolver never had a gig. We did, and we rocked the house on several occasions. And when we weren't doing that, people were coming to our door, coming to our practice pad to watch us, and it was the place to be. It was an absolute hot spot, and that's where the action was. So much so, like we've talked about, that we had to hide. We had to move practice nights because people knew when our schedule was, and they'd show up, and it was like, hey, this is fun and it's great, but we really need some closed door practices. And so we'd have to hide. We'd have to move those practice nights. We'd have to have multiple practice nights, tell them one night, this is the night, and just kind of sacrifice that night and be there and play, but then, not tell them about the next night or maybe prior to. So anyway, the secret practices. So a lot of fun, awesome band.
I think it would have been pretty easy for Revolver to be a 3-chord rock and roll, blues, country, you name it band if we would have wanted to. We could have had an entire album of songs like Railway Blues, for instance, that were primarily 3 chords, old school rock and roll. But the great thing was that Matt and Philip and Jason, and myself to a degree too, we all liked such a big selection of music. And I think when Matt and Philip and Jason would write stuff, that would come out, that you might have a song that may be considered grunge, or a song that may be considered a little more folk or a little more country influence, or old rock and roll stuff like Chuck Berry stuff, or the Beatles, Stones,
Pink Floyd,
the Doors,
and Leonard Skinner.
You name it, even Zeppelin. All those groups, I think, are in the writing that Matt and Philip and Jason put out there in Revolver. And that made it really interesting and fun for me, because there was these songs that they'd have different chord progressions and different things going on, and for them to be able to sit down and write a song and put a bridge in there or a chorus, and maybe a different progression for a solo here and there or something, just to be different. There's a lot of people that can sit down and write songs, but there's also a lot of people that just write a certain style. They write a certain way, and they have to stay in that because that's what they write in. That was the great thing about Revolver, is with those 3 guys writing songs, they could pretty much write in any style or any format that's out there.
I was always a melody guy. I always liked really bright chords that were like major chords.
The thing about songwriting is, I always say this, that it's the pinnacle. It's the top of the mountain. It's the peak of music, is songwriting. And because without songwriting, you have nothing. And you have to have a song to be able to play. As simplistic as that sounds, you could be a great drummer, but what are you going to play? Or what are you going to play to? You could be the world's greatest drummer, the world's greatest bass player, but if there's no song to play, who's going to listen? Who's going to care?
So that really gave me a chance to be able to play different things on guitar, different styles and techniques and genres that I wasn't able to do in, say, other bands that just played one thing.
We had a lot of versatility and uniqueness, I think. The song flavors, we had a lot of creativity. When you have more than one person writing songs, that really kind of gives you diversity in that regard. And styles, we enjoyed different styles,
and not every song sounded the same, which I like that, and that's what we like in the bands that we like in our music.
All the different chord progressions in a lot of the songs, ranging from Blue Sun to Desert Rose to Crimson Vision to Railway Blues. It just kind of shows where we were at musically, that all of us were really all over the map, that we all enjoyed and liked a lot of different music. And I think that really came through with the writing and all the different song types and styles and chord progressions.
We had songwriters.
Yeah, we did. I mean, all of us were songwriters.
Jason was a drummer, but he could play a little bit of guitar, and he played some of that on, the first album, Blue Sun.
I know Blue Sun was Jason's song. I think he played My Washburn on it, and played a really nice fingerstyle thing, a very folk sounding, Jim Croce-esque, very, very nice, real beautiful song. Philip actually came up with a little bridge section that was very nice, and so they both sang that song. Philip took the bridge, and I believe the 12th string is in the in that section, and then I was playing the Strat on all the solo parts. There's actually no drums on that song, but you'd never know it by listening to it. It's a really nice arrangement of how we put that together.
So Jason's song on here, Blue Sun, was a really good little ditty, and he put a capo on, as he's prone to do so often, and he just had this little progression, and it was good, and it caught our attention, and we were like, yeah, great little sound, and he had a great little melody, and when that blue sun is shining down on you, you can feel its rays, and you got these chords, a little bit of, I think he was doing finger picking, piercing your soul. Well, I might have come up with the piercing your soul, but but he came up with the concept, Blue Sun, the title, the chords, and all of that.
When that blue sun is shining down on you, you can feel its rays piercing your soul. It's a feeling you get when you are sad and lonely, and it makes the world seem so time when we were still together and our love was strong like the rays of the sun. But soon the rays turned to a dark shade of blue, and my heart was broken in two. I said I was wrong, would you shed a tear? There's a road, nobody knows where it goes. There's a road, nobody knows. There's a road, nobody knows where it goes, where it goes. There's a road, nobody knows.
Boy, what a time that was, right? Revolver was a original group that played original music. I mean, you have all these different aspects, and it's great.
When I hear the music, it makes me remember my youth, and I'm thankful for those days. I love you guys. Revolver forever.
Originality is key. I mean, you could take somebody else's song and do it over 1,000,000 times, but when you actually, as a group, Railway Blues, when you take something, you start it off with a groove, and then next thing you know, you're writing lyrics to it, and before you know it, you have one of our popular songs written within a night. Just messing around, that's magic.